Hey, everybody. I hope you're having a great day today. My name is Mike Fieldson, and this is the second in a series of streams that I'm trying to do here to help inform other DoD companies on how to expand their companies here. Just give me a second here as I try to add the other streams. So, again, my name is Mike Fieldson. I am the owner and founder over here at Ombra. Ombra is a service-able veteran-owned small business over here in Tampa, Florida. If you're probably just wait a few minutes to wait for some other folks to join in here. Hey, so welcome. I'm just going to go over some things that we've recently learned a little bit more about on how to work with other companies that are trying to do classified contracts. So I am currently the facility security officer now. That really means is, within DoD, when you want to do classified contracts, you need to have safeguard the classified information. So one of my roles here is to go ahead and try to help navigate the process. So that process is really designed and developed by a group of government officials at the Defense Counterintelligence and Security Agency, also known as DCSA. So DCSA really is the one who governs all the classified. So there's a whole code within law that controls this. It's the 32 CFR, which is the Code of Federal Regulations. So while that's pretty interesting, most people want to know, how do you go ahead and get classified contracts? And so the way to get a classified contract is find somebody who actually has a need to work in classified environments, and that will be articulated through broad agency announcement or some other type of contract offering. Uh, so what will happen is you'll end up with what's called a DD 254. And that DD 254 is basically the requirement that the government has to work in a classified environment. So if you're looking to start doing classified work, it's to find a government agency that wants to work in that level or has a requirement that, or also you can try to work as a subcontractor under a prime contract. So in either way, you'll end up with a DD 254 uh, to get what's called the NCL comes at different classification levels, all the way from confidential all the way up to top secret. So collateral duties is I help companies navigate the process. Now, for those who may not recall, my background in uh, government was I was a program manager, so I never really had any of this experience. So I kind of figured it out as I went along, got some training, which was great. And so I understand now how to do that. And so my goal here is to really help explain to other interested parties, how do I navigate that process? And so the first thing will happen is you'll get notified that you have this 254, and you'll have to set up an account in a DoD website, and that's called the National Industrial System for Security, or NIST. In order to get access to that NIST, you need some sort of trusted identification, PKI. And so what I was able to do is find this company called Identrix. They issue these tokens, and that's how we get access to those websites. Um, Once you get access to NIST, you're going to need to upload information about your company, because NIST is really talking about, really wants to understand more about your company. And specifically, what's the ownership structure? You'll include bylaws, articles, corporation, any stockholders. The more complicated your ownership structure, the more difficult it is to submit this documentation and for the government folks at DCSA to read that information. So you go through that. And so once, as you're building that out, there's a couple forms. There's a form SF-328, which is really looking for foreign involvement in your company. And then there's the agreements you have with the government to do this work and safeguard government information. And that's the D-441. So once you've kind of gone through that process, you also need to use that special key to access a system called DIS, which is the Defense and Information Security for Business for Security. And that's where you'll actually be putting people, clearances and things like that there. There's a new system called NBIS. It's where you actually create clearances or request clearances. It used to be all this was together in a system called JPass, but JPass is sunsetted. So NBIS is the National Background Investigation Services. It's a newer system. We're still trying to kind of work our way through this, but nevertheless, it's a system that you'll need to use. Main types of clearances: there's confidential, secret, and top secret. So depending on when you're creating these investigations, you'll have to say what tier it is. This took a little while for me to figure this out because I never really understood, this was before. And so for a secret or a confidential, you'll select tier 3. For top secret or SDI, you'll end up selecting tier 5. So again, that was a key thing that we learned as we go through this process. The easiest way to get your facility clearance all set up is having somebody who's already cleared to go in there and do all this work. And that's how I ended up getting involved in some of this. And so if you don't have that, someone needs to initiate the clearance investigation, which can take several months. And that'll be through EQIP. And that's a system where you'll have to submit your SF-86, which is a long document. It kind of describes, where you live, who you've known, make sure you're a quality person. So you'll be able to safeguard, public information. So next up is you'll have to get your fingerprints taken. There's a system called SWIFT, Secure Web Fingerprint Transmit system. We were using that for a company that we were supporting for a while. There's also another system that I found. It was called SwiftPrint. It's a government, or it's actually a commercial website where you can schedule all the fingerprints and things like that. So it's a lot easier. No longer use Swift just because it's a lot easier. And so kind of get into, well, what happens once you get your facility clearance after they've already approved you and you get notification. Two different really types of ways that you have security clearances. One is whether the company has one, whatever classification, say for example, a secret facility clearance, and that's really just the company has a secret clearance. Next is, whether or not you're authorized to store classified information, and if you are, that's called possessing, at whatever level. And it could be different levels. You could be, secret FCL with no possessing, and so there's some other things you have to kind of go through in order to possess at different classifications. I'm not really going to go too deep on that because we could talk about that for a long, long time. But once you've kind of gone through this process, You have to make sure you're safeguarding classified information. And so what you want to do is not have a violation. And so if you do have violations, those are all reportable. Really segregated between minor violations, uh, and a major violation. So minor violation maybe um, process that your company has set up safeguarded. Major violation would be willingly disregarded security requirements. And so that's a much bigger deal. The other thing that's kind of come along in the last few years is SEAD 3 reporting, which is a security executive agent directive. A lot of that has to do with travel. So you have to tell people or document when you're going to be on travel. You want your FSO ahead of time, and then let them know where you're going to go, and then also report any foreign contact. So that's fairly self-explanatory there. If there is a significant issue, or maybe someone is had a contact that they shouldn't have, some sort of espionage, sabotage, terrorism, those are all reportable to the FBI. Otherwise, if it's some other reportable offense, adverse action. So here's a list: personal conduct, foreign influence, drug involvement, criminal conduct. Those are all reported up through DIS. So just make sure you stay on top of that. Um, where we learned about how to do this is there's a system called the Center for Development of Security Excellence. CDC. It's all the courses that you need to take are there. Most of the courses are for being an FSO, or the facility security officer. Other roles that you'll need to fill is the senior management official. Um, Oftentimes that's also the insider threat procedure security officer. I think that's ITPSO stands for. It's really the person who's monitoring insider threats in the company, make sure, but nobody's really trying to collect information. Challenge here is the required training for the FSO. You need to be completing that within 6 months. And so that's 11 different courses for non-possessing facilities and 4 courses for possessing facilities. So 15 total if you're going to possess. So really get it on top of that. Sometimes people outsource that. And that's how I really got into it. But an FSO needs to be a U.S. citizen. You got to be a company employee, so you have to have an agreement. That may be the biggest sticking point, and then you also be trained in 6 months, like I mentioned. Uh, so the other things that you consider is whether you have to have initial training for all the employees that have access to that information. So many companies decide that they're going to train everybody. We also have annual refresher training. Again, it occurs at least once a year, and I've got a whole host of training materials. And then also that we can be shared. And then also there's the debriefing. Um, and so there's some other briefings. If you get into other types information, more for travel briefing and so forth. But then after you develop this whole security program, you'll end up having to have annual reviews. You'll do the annual self-assessment. You'll turn that in. You'll submit your findings through NISS, the NISS program. Your manager official will sign off on that, and then you'll end up having security reviews. Uh, the security reviews are conducted on site. You'll have a DCSA rep will come out, and they will talk about or ask you questions about your security program. And so right now there's basically 5 different ratings that you can get. You can get an unsatisfactory, marginal. Those are obviously when you're not following the rules. Satisfactory, most people get. Commendable is you're doing things better than the average, and then superior is the highest ranking. I had a meeting last week with BCSA rep, and they said that they're going to revamp this process. Uh, and so we'll see what kind of happens there. But they're really looking for isolated incidents or systemic problems with your security program. And so again, following the rules, following the NISPOM, the 32 CFR, and all that training material. One other thing I'd like to touch upon is if you have a requirement for an information system. So if you're going to process on computers or laptops or anything, there's a whole process that you have to go through. There's a system called EMAS, and it's obviously more complicated than just having documents within your GSA container. But just trying to be able to get classified material, it can be quite challenging. You need to have a security program and procedures documented. You also need to have your insider threat plan. But the biggest thing that I found as a challenge is getting the security container. And so they're hard to find. Ironically, when I was a government employee, I didn't realize how hard they were to find. Shredders are pretty straightforward. They're expensive, but security containers are a little more of a challenge to find. And so, as a service here at Ombra, we've offered that on our website for purchase. Again, that's just to try to help folks navigate that process. It took me about 6 months to find one at one point, and so we were able to find that used containers which satisfy the requirements. I guess kind of last but not least, I'll just kind of talk about some of the hotlines. If there's something that doesn't seem right, if you need to report an incident, there's a series of hotlines. Again, that'll be part of your security program. It'll be documented and turned into DCSA. And so we've got copies of all that here that we help other folks with. And so if you have any questions, reach out to me or reach out to somebody from our office, and we'll be happy to help you. If there's any questions, please respond in the link below, and put up a landing page too, where you can reach out to us. And so that's all I really wanted to talk about as far as defense classified contracts, how to get them all set up, and look forward to trying to help again on a future topic.